Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to our community. I'm Andy Thornton, your host, coming to you from the I've Decided Studios. And our podcast today is sponsored by I've Decided and the Greater Peoria Family YMCA, of which I am employed by. So happy to be here with you today. Happy to be here with my guest, Ben Watt.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And Ben is the founder of Next Step. He's a former youth pastor, a couple of different places, I think,
Yes.
but El Vista Baptist Church is where I think you spent most of your time. And he's also a candidate for the Illinois House of Representatives and running in District 92, right?
That is correct.
All
Yes.
right. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I grew up in Peoria. My dad has been a pastor here for many years, decades. And my wife is Christina. We've been married for 16 years almost. And we have 4 children, and they all are still at home. And 10 years as a youth pastor, and then HR and safety director at Peoria Charter Coach. Spent 8 years with them. And then for the last couple of years, I've been helping in transitional ministries. So 2 different churches that needed direction for their children's and youth ministries, a year in Groveland, and now I'm in Morton.
Okay.
And still live in Peoria. And so, yeah, it's exciting. Also, got my hand in a lot of other little things as well.
Yeah. So almost 16 years. Does that mean you got an anniversary coming up soon?
Yes. About 3 weeks away.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
early.
Appreciate that.
16 years. I think mine's 25 now.
Well,
so.
and mine should be longer, but it took me a while to catch on that she was the one.
Yeah.
She'll be happy to tell you that too.
Well, I can relate. You know, I'm a man too. I'm a little slow to come around to the wise part of my character. So, the other question I have for you, and then we could probably do a whole show on this. What's it like to work for Bill Winkler?
He is a great guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I love Bill.
That's a loaded
friend.
question.
Yeah.
He still knows me.
Yeah.
It's good.
Bill's a great guy. He's a member of the Y. I see him often, a passionate Christian, and
Yes.
love hanging out with Bill.
Yes, and you know what? He's done a lot of good behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Yeah.
So maybe have him on someday to talk about it.
Yeah, he would be a great guest for sure. So today we're going to talk to our listeners and talk together about this weekly winning word that Kim threw out there. And I'll just be completely honest with you. If this wasn't the weekly winning word that I was doing a podcast on, I don't know that I could define it.
Mm-hmm.
When it came up, I thought, holy cow, what is ebullient? What does it mean? And Kim did a great job of describing it. When you read the definition, it's pretty clear of what it means, right? And so I'll share the definition for our folks that are listening. But ebullient is defined as cheerful and full of energy, overflowing with enthusiasm and fervor. And for me, that's hard. It's hard for me to be cheerful and overflowing with enthusiasm.
Yes, I also would not have used this word if it were not for Kim's writing. And I even had to Google how to pronounce it. Yes, because I wasn't sure. But it is something that you have to be intentional about. There are probably some people who are naturally ebullient.
Sure. Kim is like that.
Yes, that is true. Anybody who knows Kim knows that's true.
Absolutely. But she wrote a great article, and for those of you who are in the I've Decided community, I've probably seen it and read it, and that's kind of the foundation for our discussion today. Is we're going to talk about the 4 things as Kim described them that will help us avoid overexposure and negativity so that we can be more ebullient, because that's kind of the opposite of it, right? Is if you're ebullient is positivity, and when we get surrounded with negativity or overcome with negativity, it really displaces us and takes the joy kind of out of our lives, I think.
I like to think when we sometimes describe a person as walking in and they light up the room, this is probably that word, ebullient. I have a brother. He's naturally ebullient, and he also thinks he's funny.
2 different things, though, right?
Right. So,
not necessarily humorous.
Correct.
It wasn't in the definition.
But yeah, I think that would be a great way to be described. You know, when you enter the room, folks know it's about to get more cheerful. There's about to be energy and enthusiasm. And I think as I've entered in the world of politics, as I've worked in inner city ministry, there are plenty of things that can really drain that joy and that cheerfulness. politics is brand new to me, but working with people who have suffered so much or who have a great deal of loss, it can be overwhelming. In fact, I remember asking my friend who is a professional counselor at the Antioch group. Okay. And I said, how do you handle problems all day long and then go home and you still have anything left to give?
Yeah.
And one of her answers was, you have to be intentional about turning it off.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that we have this word, ebullient. Like if you just run your day through that filter, would anyone describe me as ebullient today?
It really is a good perspective, I think, and I appreciate you framing it up that way, because it does take intentionality and strategic thought to stay in this mindset. And I think that we would all agree that being in this mindset, we're going to be more productive.
Yes.
We're going to be more impactful.
Absolutely.
In everything that we do. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. So the first point that Kim made in her article was to spend our time wisely. And I think that that's really important in everything that we do. There are so many distractions in our lives. Social media is a huge distraction for a lot of people. Just email is a distraction for me in my life, and my work life especially. I can get consumed by it all the time, and it just distracts me from some of the important things that I need to do. And there's so much information that's out there and available to us. Sometimes it's hard to decipher what's true and what isn't true in those different instances. And I think you have to be, like you said, be intentional about spending your time wisely.
My nature is to kind of push back against somebody who's ebullient, like, oh, they're Pollyanna.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect.
Right.
But look at somebody who doesn't do that. So I've experienced this personally during seasons of unemployment or seasons of particular distress, or even now that I'm running for office, everybody sends me all the negative news. Like, hey, Ben, you need to know about this. You need to know about this. Right. And so you have to be very careful about what you allow in, but it's not fake to be cheerful. Like, there's a lot to be excited about and a lot to be good about. So even in the Bible, it talks about in Philippians chapter 4, what we're supposed to fill our minds with, things that are good. And now I'm going to get called out if anybody's watching this who knows me, because I can't remember my verse.
You're good. You're good.
It's Philippians 4:8. You can go look it up. But all these good things that you need to put into your mind, things that are true and honest and just and a good report.
Yep.
And what's going to be the natural result of that? You're going to be feeling those good things. And I think we do have to be careful. It doesn't mean we ignore what's wrong, but we do see what's positive, and we are careful about it.
Well, and that's talked about a little bit later on in the discussion, but it's having the proper perspective, right? Yeah, there's a lot of negative that can have on, and I appreciate, your relationship to Christ and the work that you do, and I have a relationship with Christ as well, and that's a big part of faith, right? Of being positive as much as you possibly can be in every situation, no matter how challenging your life face. You have to look, I think, for the positives and try to lean on those sometimes. And sometimes we don't even know what the answers are, what the reasons why we may be going through some challenges, but we've got to have that perspective of positivity in our life. And that takes intentional and strategic thought, I think, to really put us in the right framework.
Can I share a story related
to that? You can,
absolutely. I was at a really difficult time in a transition in life. So, you go from one career to another, or one challenge to another. Just, there was a lot going on in my life. And honestly, I was not being careful about what I allowed in. And the point about focusing on what you can control. So one night I get a message on Facebook from a girl who was married to someone that I had ministered to years before. And he was threatening to take his own life.
Oh, boy.
And I walked over and I handed my phone to my wife, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was so frustrated because I wasn't quite as far as he was, but I was going that direction. Just like, it is not worth it. I'm giving up. And now somebody's reaching out, asking me for help. And the first thing that I said was, well, at least I know what he needs, because it's the same thing I need right now. So I drove 5 hours, spent the day with him. And I said, look, he was unemployed. I said, you have to get a job. Don't care if it's Taco Bell or McDonald's. You have to get a job, because you're just sitting here surrounded by your negativity.
Right.
And the point is, like, that one little thing that he could control turned things around.
Right.
And I won't go into details, but
Right.
they're doing so much better now.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing. Like if you could just take that one thing and control it.
Yeah, take that intentional step, right?
Yes.
And create some change for yourself. I think that's good, and I appreciate you sharing that. The second point is to recharge often. I struggle with this personally, of being intentional about taking time for myself, so to speak, and being thoughtful about recharging. There's just too much to do, right? And I realize it's important to do that. And there's plenty of seasons in my life where a lot of peaks and valleys, where I'm feeling great today, and then tomorrow I'll be down in the dumper for whatever reason. Really, usually no good reason at all, other than I'm just grumpy. But I think it's really important for people to take that time intentionally to try to set everything aside and focus on recharging your battery a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Covey, in his book, The Habits of Highly Effective People, I think that was his book, wasn't it?
I think so.
He talks about things that are urgent and things that are important. And we spend too much time in the urgent. And there are things that are urgent. That is true. But this is another place where my Christian faith comes in. My hope and my confidence is that God is in control.
Right.
So there are things that absolutely must be done. You know, like tomorrow you have to have the report done, or in my case,
Right.
Vacation Bible School starts soon. You have to have the curriculum.
Right.
You can't survive without that. However, there are a lot of things that we say have to be done that don't.
Right.
And we sacrifice what's important, like time off with our family or whatever, for those things that are urgent. And I think recharging often is a challenge that probably all of us have.
Mm-hmm.
And again, taking it back to this new phase that I'm in where I'm running for office. There are a million meetings. There's no way I can meet everybody. I wish I could.
Right.
And anybody who reaches out, I'll get back to them. But there are days where I'm just like, oh, I can't keep up.
Right.
And we have to recharge often, or that ambulance, is that the right form of the word ambulance?
Yeah.
Will dissipate.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying, because that is I think everyone has that challenge.
Yeah. There's a part in the article that really stuck with me when I was reading it. And it was, we have to understand what fills us up and what empties our tank. Right. And then we've got to focus on the things that are going to fill us up. And those things that drain us, we got to try to set those aside. And I know there's things that will drain us that we have to do. We have to think there's just things that we don't like. But when we understand where the good is and where the bad is, and we focus more time on the good, and I'll use that analogy, I think we're going to have a better chance to be more successful and focus that way. So it's just important to surround yourself with the things that are going to give you the energy, right, that you need.
What are some things that give Andy energy?
Rest, which I don't get enough of for some reason. And that's just a biological thing with my body for some reason. But that definitely gives me energy. You know, it's just being the one thing that really gives me energy, and I find myself struggling to have time for it, is, you know, my morning prayer time or devotion time. When I'm really intentional about that time in the morning, that 30 to 60 minutes, however long it may be, I find that my day goes much better, right? When I put things in proper perspective, that helps me a lot. The problem is there's always so many other things to do. I find excuses to skip over that part of my life. I know that's not just a challenge for me, but that definitely, and just, you know, spending time with my family, right? I got 4 kids, and they're all growing and starting to be self-productive adults and that's a season of change of life too. So we're not quite as busy maybe as what we used to be when they were littler. So it's finding new ways to engage with them and find joy through that process too.
Good. Yeah, I'm always intrigued by that. There are things. So by nature, I'm kind of an introvert, but it's kind of an anomaly maybe that I have people that I love to be around.
Yeah.
And so, it's been interesting to read some articles on that, like an introvert that likes to be around people, but it's the ones that you're comfortable with. And then I come back just energized by talking about ideas, talking about possibilities. And that's important to me, to be intentional about those relationships. I have one friend that we just said, we're going to meet once a month. We may have to cancel it sometimes, but just no matter what's going on, we're meeting for lunch once a month. And that's been incredible. And so that steps.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being a selective introvert.
That's right. Yeah.
I can align with some of those principles myself, right? And I think in some levels that can help us be ebullient if we're spending our time with the right people.
Yeah, you walk out of the meeting just lifted.
Yeah,
and that glow or spirit is contagious.
Yeah, I talk to my kids a lot, and I coach youth sports a lot too. And right now, I coach a junior high basketball team, and I talk to my girls a lot too about who you spend your time with is going to defines who you are as a person, right? So you want to surround yourself with the right people that are going to lift you up, build you up, give you the ebullience, right? So that you can be successful. I think that's really important in so many facets of our life. So the next point in this whole strategy of being more ebullient is Kim just defines it as stay in your lane, right? Which I'll summarize as, know what you know, and lean on your own understanding of when you're going to engage in, conversation or debate or whatever, or just providing training or whatever it is you're doing for people. Make sure you know what it is that you're talking about, right? And if we do that, we're much more comfortable. My kids ask me all the time because, I run the Y and I have opportunities to speak at different times in public settings. And I'm like, how do you do that? How do you stand up in front of people and talk? Well, it's easy when you know what you're talking about,
right?
To stand up and have confidence and share your passion. And I think when you're intentional about that, it's so much easier to, I guess, find happiness with that. And
yeah.
When you try to talk about everything and know everything, we all know those types of people. And those people suck energy, right? They don't give energy, they take energy.
This is helpful. So I've had opportunity in ministry and in the what you might call secular workforce, although I think all work is worship. But this is true in both cases. When I'm training Sunday school teachers or volunteers, I tell them, you can't teach what you don't know.
Yep.
Now, you don't have to know everything, but
Right.
But if you're going to get up and present a lesson about a Bible story, you can't teach what you don't know. Likewise, with our trainers at Peoria Charter, if you don't know how to drive and operate the bus, it's going to be hard for you to train somebody else how to do it, because there's just your experience, which is another thing that Kim brought out. Your experience informs that information. It's really what makes you an expert.
Yep.
I'm learning that there's things that motivated me to get involved in politics.
Right.
My wife said you have to get us a security system or a dog if you're going to do that, right? Because there's that fear of the unknown, right? And we're not running for president, so I think we're good. Right. But the point is, as I have just dabbled into this just a little bit, I had the things that motivated me, but as I've gotten in there, I've learned there's so much more going on. For example, they talk about corruption in our state. We're in the state of Illinois.
Right.
In my mind, that was people cheating or telling lies, but really it's some of the rules of how our government functions that allows corruption to thrive.
Right.
Okay. So I didn't know that 6 months ago, but I am digging in and learning from those who've gone before me, and I'm going, wow. And as I learn more information, then I become not an expert, but
you're better educated.
And
can speak on it.
And so, we could do a whole podcast on the things that I've learned in this last 8 weeks or so, but maybe 12 weeks. But the point is, you can't teach what you don't know.
Right.
And when on the other side of that is when you act like you know everything, you not only drain people, but you demotivate them.
Yeah, you turn people off. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
And so folks will sometimes in leadership, of course, the catchphrase is micromanage, but I'm curious on your opinion on this. Is that coming from insecurity, or do they really think they know everything, or is it sometimes both?
I don't know. I think it's probably both, depending on the individual. I have found in my experience that if you want people to work hard for you, I like to say with you,
right?
Because I don't like to think of people who work at the Y are working for me, right?
Right.
They're working for the organization, they're working for themselves. But when they know that you have confidence in them to do their job, and I tell people this all the time, when I hire you to do a job, I'm going to let you do the job,
Yes.
right? I will make sure you understand what's expected, and then do it, right? Go ahead. You're not going to need me to micromanage. I don't want to be that individual, because that's not a comfortable place to be. And I do think a lot of that comes from either somebody who just has to have control, or that there's an insecurity of some type to make sure that things aren't going to fail.
Yeah.
But my perspective is when we fail, we learn. So I like to let people go out and do that to a certain extent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just said to someone this morning, they had a task to do, and they said, "No, is that my responsibility or yours?" I said, "Nope, that's yours. If you mess it up, I'll take the blame. But if you get it right, I'll praise you."
Right.
and that, I think, really comes back to our word,
mm-hmm.
Ebullient, is those folks who feel like they have to be in control of everything,
right,
are generally not cheerful or full of energy.
No,
not at all.
I agree with that.
One of the greatest examples, like if I was going to say one person's name, her name is Felicia. She used to teach at a Christian school here in Peoria. Now she lives out in Utah. I imagine some people know her. You'd come in and tell her, "Hey, I'm coming back from this trip," or whatever, and she'd say, "Tell me all about it."
Mm.
I learned that from her. Like, I don't know how to talk about your ski trip, or I don't know about your bungee jumping, as we were talking earlier.
Right.
I may have no experience in that, but if I just with Ebullient say, "Tell me all about it,"
right,
they open up.
Yeah.
So the same is true when I'm working with somebody. I wouldn't have given it this language until now, but tell me what you think you could do in this position.
Mm-hmm.
What are your ideas for how we can accomplish whatever it is? And that energy transfers to them, and we get a lot of great things done.
Yeah.
And have fun doing it.
Well, people love to be appreciated, right? Mm-hmm. And that example is a perfect model of that. And when you ask people to share, mm-hmm. right, most people are going to. And I think it's a good practice. So the fourth step is focus on the positive, right? And we've talked a little bit that throughout. We say it a lot, we've heard it a lot, but it's not easy to do, to stay positive all the time and focus on the positive. But we've got to have, we have to be able to do that as much as possible if we're really truly going to be ebullient, because the negativity will surround us, overtake us, and really take us out of that place of joy.
I listen to audiobooks a lot, and one of them, I can't give the credit to the right author because I can't remember which one it was. So that every trial is an opportunity to prove you can overcome it, and something along those lines. And it totally changed my perspective. So I'm the kind of guy that my mother passed away unexpectedly in March. I was 150 signatures away from getting on the ballot, and she had a heart procedure and didn't come out of it. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to drop the whole politics thing.
Yeah.
But she told her nurse, "I'm really proud of my son who's running for office." And he felt he should tell me that after her procedure.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're burying mom next week and we have to get 150 signatures. We're going to do both.
Wow.
So we got on the ballot. But this is crazy. On the day that we had her funeral, my car broke down and had to be towed. Fortunately, it was after the funeral, not before. And there was a time in my life when I would have been just like devastated. Okay, right. Now I'm spiraling down. This is just too much. I can't handle it.
Right.
And I remembered it was a like Think Like a Millionaire type book that I had read that in. And it's like every challenge is just an opportunity to prove what you're made of, or to learn how to overcome another obstacle.
Right.
And I was like, well, I just have to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
Call the tow truck, call my wife to please come pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm learning that focus on the positive, like there was nothing positive about the car breaking down. However, it got towed, it got fixed. Right. It's going great. Right. And life just kept going. Yeah. And it's funny how we can get tripped up on little things like that. So we have to focus on the fact that my wife was only 5 minutes away, the fact that the tow truck guy was available,
mm-hmm. I heard I was at church this past week, heard a sermon, but it was a guest pastor. Our pastor's on vacation. And he talked a little bit about this in his sermon, is those moments of weakness or failure, those challenges, those are the opportunities when God is drawing us close to him, right? Giving us an opportunity to engage with him a little further. And I think as a man of faith, and I know when you have that perspective, okay, what's going on right here? I don't understand it. Why would this happen now? But I know that I'm supposed to be here with you, right? In this relationship, focusing on that, it becomes a lot easier to kind of take that perspective. And I agree with you that we've got to find, no matter what challenge we're going through, we've got to find the positives in it and focus on those to help us keep that spirit of ebullience.
So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm sitting here and people get to hear this. I want to share two stories, hopefully quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was a youth pastor, we started a basketball program for the kids in our neighborhood. Okay. And we would invite boys from our community to come. And we'd run about 30 young men on Monday nights. And they'd play basketball for an hour. Then about 15 minutes, I give them a challenge about what it looks like to be a good Christian man and have character and so on. And then they play for another 45 minutes. And we discovered that half of those young men had never lived in the same house with married people. Like not their parents, not their grandparents. They'd never lived in the same house as married people. And I thought, I'm trying to teach them how to be good husbands and fathers. But it's like teaching someone to be a diesel mechanic without ever opening up the hood of a truck. Right. Like it's all theory. And so eventually in 2011, I felt like, okay, being the traditional youth pastor is just not enough.
Right.
I've got to do something more. And in some ways it was discouraging. 3 of the young men that I have worked with and invested my life in have been shot and killed. One of those happened when I was at work, going back to recharging. It sucked the life out of me. And I just asked my boss, Bill Winkler, can I go home? He's like, absolutely. Take as much time as you need. It wasn't even my own child, but I had poured my heart and life into this young man, and to have him gone like that. And you begin thinking, is this really worth it?
Right.
And there I had to go back and focus on the positive. So these young men, that really motivated me to leave traditional youth ministry and start Next Step, which was a mentoring program where we trained mentors and prayed regularly for fatherless young men. But that also, we started thinking about the positive. Like Trey's life was enriched because of our investment.
Sure.
And my faith in Christ tells me that it was appointed unto him once to die. So God didn't want him to die that way, but God knew that's when his time would come, and he let our paths cross. And so we just started thinking about all the positive aspects of that. It's the same thing in the running for office. So I've reached out to my representative. I don't usually agree with, there's some things that we agree on. So she was a champion for expunging records wherever you are in the United States. I think it's a great idea. I remember trying to hire a pastor to drive a motor coach. And 45 years before, he'd had a marijuana charge, and so he couldn't get a proper license. So I do think there's things like that we can fix without getting into politics. All right, but I finally felt like, okay, I can complain, I can be the keyboard warrior, or I can step up and give people a choice.
Right.
And for years, they haven't had a choice. And so now I have to figure out what my campaign is going to be like. Is it going to be a smear tactic campaign like so many of them are? I'm not against telling the truth, but we decided, nope, we're not doing that. And I thank God for my wife, because she would say to me all the time, you need to, whatever you're writing, make sure that our neighbor who's not on the same side as you won't be hurt or offended by that. Right. And so we said, okay, our goal is a brighter future. We're not looking at, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. What can we do to make our future brighter? Right. Really, that should probably be the theme for the rest of my life. How can, even before we started this, and Kim said, make sure what you say is helpful. Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. I want whatever I'm doing to be helpful.
Yeah. Be a difference maker, right? For the positive. I think that's a great perspective for all of us. And I think that's really what it boils down to be ebullient, right? Be joyful, be happy, make positive change in every opportunity that you get throughout every day of your life, right?
Absolutely.
That's it. Bring positive energy. I have a good friend in the Y. We share a lot of war stories, so to speak, right? The challenges that we're going through, and it's a great place to kind of go to just to get some feedback from professionals who can relate to what you're dealing with. And he says this all the time. There's 2 types of people in the world. There's those that provide energy and those who suck energy,
Mm.
right? And we need to provide energy in everything that we do, positive energy in everything that we do. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. You have a choice on how you're going to come to the table in every situation. And you need to come with the love of Christ and provide positive support.
That's interesting that you say that, because I actually heard that there was 3 different kinds of people in the world, and they were those who can count and those who can't. So,
Yeah.
you can do what you want with that.
That's good. That's good. Well, did we say something earlier about humor? All right. Well, Ben, thank you for joining me today.
Yes.
I wish you all the luck moving forward. Good luck in your
Appreciate
campaign this
it.
fall. And let us know how we can help you.
All right.
Right?
And likewise.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us this month here on Our Community.